Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, saluting Earth Day on April 22nd with an ongoing commitment to help offset carbon emissions with sustainable harvesting of Missouri forests. Details at choosewood.com.
Welcome to St. Louis on the Air. I'm Sharon Stevens. There's a new report by the St. Louis County Affordable Housing Trust Fund Task Force. It lists how place-based and mobility-based strategies can create pathways for very low and low-income families to move into neighborhoods with existing opportunity. Then County Executive Steve Stenger established the task force last year and appointed its members. Joining me in studio to talk about the report were Krehmeyer and Adrian Bracy. They are co-chairs of the task force. Krehmeyer is the CEO of Beyond Housing, and Adrian Bracy is the CEO of the YWCA of Metro St. Louis. I began by asking what Stenger's resignation means for the task force.
There's a big need for affordable housing in St. Louis County, and would Adrian and I be willing to lead a group of talented, smart people to say what can we do about it? So we hope that new county executive Page and his team will embrace this and recognize that it meets a great need. It's a report that doesn't have any funding associated with it, so there's still a lot more work to be done. But again, we think the findings, the priorities, the strategies will do great benefit to residents and those who need affordable housing in St. Louis County.
Do you plan to meet with Sam Page anytime soon so that you can, make sure that everything's on track?
I'm guessing on the list of things he's going to do in his first couple of days, this may not be on the list, but clearly we want to have a conversation when the time is right. So
absolutely. Okay. Well, Adrian, what happens if, maybe he doesn't go along with what you said, with what you've said?
Well, hopefully that will not happen. But if it does happen, I feel that we will gather together as a task force and possibly talk about next steps, because we don't want this to stop. This is not a political issue. So we're not looking for that to happen, actually.
Okay. Let me ask, why was the task force formed?
Well, it originally spawned from Health Equity Works, which is the Jason Purnell organization out of Washington University, did one of their seminal reports called Dismantling the Divide. And in that, it talked about the housing issues historically in the St. Louis region, including St. Louis County. And one of the recommendations from that report was to have the St. Louis County create an affordable housing trust fund, because it did not have one of size and scale similar to the one in the city of St. Louis. So that was one of the recommendations. So, part of the conversation that my organization has been having for years is we don't have enough resources to meet the need of those living in St. Louis County. So the county executive embraced the notion of, is that something we can do? And I'd like to get behind that. So from that, they contacted Adrian and I and said, would we be willing to co-chair this task force, and who else could be around the table to help us in the conversation? So the folks who joined us were just simply marvelous and smart and wise and experienced, and that was the genesis of it. Again, kudos to Jason Purnell and Health Equity Works it used to be the Forsake of All, but Health Equity Works for bringing this topic to a much brighter light and a much bigger audience, and from that, this report was produced.
Why is it called trust fund? You said there's no money associated with it, but why is it called that?
Well, again, the idea of the trust fund is we're going to raise some money and put it in there, right? So we have to find a funding stream. So part of the recommendations are we make recommendations on here are some possible places where we can gather the funding streams to go into a fund on an annual basis to be used for specific purposes to meet the housing needs of residents in St. Louis County.
And who would control the fund?
Well, that was a recommendation by the task force. The actual fund would be handled by hopefully the board that's selected for the trust fund itself.
Okay, let's maybe back up a little bit and ask, what are your key findings?
And before we go with the key findings, we'd like to tell you what exactly we were charged to do. Mm-hmm. So we were charged to outline a strategy of funding priorities that collectively address affordable housing and related needs of the St. Louis County residents, okay. And then to determine an amount needed for the strategy priorities, and then come up with the framework for the trust fund, and then to provide complementary policy proposals. And so what we have determined were the actual priorities included the actual people that will be available or able to use the fund, and that would be the low and low income families, single person head of households in poverty with children, cost burden households earning less than $35,000 a year, especially renters, senior citizens 65 and older, especially renters, household experiencing homelessness, especially those with children, students, and then households experiencing evictions and foreclosures.
Okay.
So again, and those populations were really stemmed from the data analysis that that the county planning department and others gave to us, saying where is the greatest need and unmet need in St. Louis County. So an example, there are over 115,000 cost burden households, meaning they are paying too much for their housing situation. So those 115,000 families, 77,000 of them earn less than $35,000 a year. So again, we knew there was this great unmet need. So from a priority standpoint, those we wanted to reach were, again, those who were cost burden making less than $35,000 a year. That's disproportionate single headed households with children, right? So again, we know in the region all throughout the country, single-headed households with kids struggle mightily in a lot of different ways. And in St. Louis County, there's not a lot of resources to support them, either in living where they're at or finding a new place. So,
and where do they live? North, south, west, everywhere?
So clearly the data tells us that North County has a predominance of folks of that demographic, but that does not mean folks in South County don't have the similar kinds of challenges. Clearly, from a demographic standpoint, not much in West County, but clearly near North County, and then certainly parts of South County.
And what other findings did you come up with? And when I say who's going to pay for it, I mean, are we talking about banks?
No, we're
government.
No, we're talking about kind of public funding streams, sales tax, use tax. So again, there's a whole bunch of different ways, right? So the zoo just funded their thing, right? So we're gonna go to the region, and we know that's a challenge, right? We know people like, wait a minute, I pay enough taxes now will be one sentiment. But we believe that, look, if we're not supporting families and if we're not allowing people to live their best lives and improve the housing stock, improve the tax base in St. Louis County, particularly in those places that struggle, we're fooling ourselves relative to what the future may hold. So there are 4 funding recommendations. One is a sales tax. Second would be a use tax. Third would be the tax on recreational marijuana in the event that ever comes to fruition, and then also a tax on medical marijuana. So again, four recommendations that the task force made. That doesn't mean that any or all of them will come to fruition, but we're suggesting that we think those are places that we can generate revenue, again, to meet this great unmet need in St. Louis County. Again, what a lot of folks don't know is there are more people living in poverty in St. Louis County than St. Louis City. Might be a higher concentration in the geography of St. Louis City, but there are more people living in poverty in St. Louis County. And again, there are just few resources to support what we think is the most basic and important thing, and that's the place that you call home. So again, how do we both keep people where they're living and then create new affordable housing opportunities?
And then, we also talked about, on that same vein, if there are other entities like a trust fund out there that's also doing a similar work with a trust fund, then maybe we can collaborate. For instance, let's say there's homelessness for youth, and the Children's Trust Fund, they provide funding for youth. Well, is there some opportunity for us to maybe collaborate if we get this funding done? Because that's the one thing in the region that we've got to do more of, which is collaboration, because it takes a village. And so we're looking at every angle possible to be able to bring affordable housing to our residents in the county.
Are you considering, the formation of a district, like there's a zoo museum district? Are you talking about something like that, or are you just talking strictly
dedicated revenue streams that come in on an annual basis? So the region knows there's this pool of money that will be available on an annual basis to meet the needs of folks in St. Louis County. So Sharon, we talked about the people and places, right? So again, those had the highest need, and then from a geographic standpoint, really there's 6 goals that the task force put together. Says, look, this is what we're trying to accomplish. One is increase housing stability, right? So for instance, we know, my organization does a lot of work in the boundaries of the Normie Schools Collaborative. Every year, the last several years, the annual mobility rate, meaning the churn of kids in one school year at Normandy, is about 40%. Right, so if we can provide resources that keeps people in their homes, right, provide housing stability. 2, provide prevention services, right? How do we stop people from getting evicted? How do we stop people from getting foreclosed, right? How do we, again, keep people in their homes? 3,
how do you do that?
Well, again, you provide services, right? So again, if it's foreclosure services, how do you pay for getting somebody caught up in rent? How do you pay for, again, an organization to have staff that can pay for, again, having a counselor to work with the bank and with the bar to figure out how do we prevent this person from losing their home. Preserve existing affordable and accessible housing, right? Again, we know that there's always issues of losing affordable housing units because of a whole series of your tax credit periods expired or other reasons why there's a loss of affordable housing. Increase the quality, affordable, and accessible housing options, meaning let's produce more housing for a range of folks, people searching, people with disabilities, people with, again, unmet needs. 5, promote mobility to areas of opportunity. So what that means is, and we spent a lot of time with the task force, we'll be talking about, this is not just about only places that are struggling mightily. Wouldn't it be great if we had resources that allowed people to move to areas that had good public schools and access to jobs and access to other things, right? So again, we want a portion of the resources here to say, yes, let's support the places that are struggling where there's work going on, but let's also provide opportunities for folks to live in other places so they're not worried about what's outside around their front door. And then lastly, align with communities where there's significant existing investments going on. Right, so let's keep, again, working in places where there's lots of good stuff already happening. So those were the 6 goals that we put together, recognizing that, look, we really want to serve populations, we want to serve geographies, but we want to do it in a pretty specific kind of way.
We need to take a quick break, but we'll be back in just a moment to our conversation on affordable housing solutions. This is St. Louis on the Air on St. Louis Public Radio, 90.7 KWMU. Adrian, who's going to benefit? The rich, the poor, everybody?
Well, we're hoping the low income to very low income, and we do have a median. People who earn less than $35,000, we said, but then we do want to make sure that it's not just for that group, but that we're hoping that group really will be able to take advantage of this. But then there's the income limit, which is 30%, 50%, and 85% of the area median income. Mm-hmm. So you're talking about, for instance, 30% would be someone who is making $20,780. Someone who's making 50% of the AMI is $34,600. Someone who's making 80% of the AMI is $55,350. So those are the individuals who are our target to really benefit from this.
And how do you market this to people? Nobody wants to think about paying extra taxes. So how do you market this to people?
Yeah, so I think, the way we'd love to approach it, and clearly the campaign has not yet been launched. This is just a task force report. But clearly I think everyone understands the power of home and the value of a strong place where you come home to every night and put your head on your pillow and sit around the kitchen table talking about your day, and the value that brought to all of us who had that. And sadly, not enough folks in the St. Louis region can say that, right? If there's 115,000 families that are cost burdened, meaning they're under a lot of financial stress every day, right? So again, how do we think about, again, the power of our region is going to be, again, the task force believes about the strength of our neighborhoods, the strength of our families. And if you don't have housing stability, the rest of your life is really complicated. So the argument we want to make is, yes, it's for individual families, but quite frankly, it's for the region, right? If we don't tackle this problem, if we don't get after this problem in a real and meaningful way, it's going to continue to cause neighborhoods to struggle. It's going to continue to have school districts to not be as successful as we want. It's going to continue to harm the life and well-being of children and families in the region. And this is, we know, a documented, well-evidenced way that we can have success.
And who do you need to have with you?
We need to have everyone with us. We do. Because I said earlier, it takes a village. And like Chris just said, and your question was who would benefit from this, really it's the whole region. The crime, a lot of the crime that takes place, if we could somehow bring affordable housing into a neighborhood, jobs, wraparound services, I truly believe that will eliminate a lot of the crime that we have, which then benefits our region. But we definitely have to have everyone on board, from the politicians to the residents.
So look, we've been having a lot of conversations of late about regional things that are important to us, and ideas and proposals by lots of different entities. And again, what the task force is suggesting, that any thought about the future of our region, how strong we're going to get or where we can go, we believe has to be around this notion of home. And again, we don't allocate enough resource to ensure that families in the region have a decent, safe, and affordable place to call home. And we think providing this kind of housing stability will go a long way in helping families get stronger, helping neighborhoods get stronger, helping schools get stronger. If we don't invest in ourselves, in our neighborhoods, in our children, what does the future hold for us?
And it helped the businesses as well. It's an economic empowerment for the whole region, because we all benefit from this. The corporations will benefit because now they have residents who actually have stability at a home, and there's nothing like home.
And how much is all this going to cost?
So again, what we like to do on an annual basis is raise about $30 million a year. Which on some levels feels like a really big number, but on some levels it really isn't.
I was going to ask, do you think that's enough?
No, it's not.
It's
not. But we think it's a palatable number relative to the different use places that. And again, we're asking people. Again, these are going to be a sales tax, a use tax. It's going to be taxes. It's going to be public dollars, right? So we get. John Doe citizen is not thrilled at any point in time at paying taxes for anything unless maybe it's the zoo, and we all love the zoo, so the zoo gets a lot of our money. And that's a great thing for the region. We want to suggest that, again, making sure that we're providing an opportunity to have homes for families that live in the region, to have neighborhoods that are strong, to have communities that are strong. We believe that's good for the region, and we hope we can craft an argument that's not just about, we're going to throw some more money at something. No, we're going to invest in ourselves, invest in the region, and give everybody the opportunity to have this place called home.
And Sharon, I'd just like to say that one reason why this project was really important to YWCA, probably 75% of our clients are single head of household mothers. And even the study that we did showed that, and I don't have the exact percentage, but it was a very high percentage of this population that really needs affordable housing were African American single mothers. And so for YWCA, for me as a CEO, that was really critical. And I already know, so that's not something that I really had to read from the statistics. That's something that I know on a daily basis, that the one obstacle for sustainability and for self-sustainability for a family is housing and affordable housing. So we currently have a permanent supportive housing for women, and I know the importance of having a home, having an address that you can call yours. It's just really critical for our region.
And if this gets off the ground, this is a years-long kind of undertaking. I mean,
it's significant. The resources needed and necessary. One, they're camping on the sales tax on the ballot until 2020, so we have to wait for that. The use tax, there's still some pending state legislation that allows for that to occur. We talked about recreational marijuana, which is not even legal yet in Missouri, right? So we're trying to put a stake in the ground. Says we want to carve out that space, and the medical marijuana space obviously is also brand new. So no, it'll take a campaign, just like any other efforts like this. We have to have a message. We got to have a campaign. We got to have resources, right? But at the end of the day, again, we think if we're not willing to invest in our future, then what's going to happen to the region? There's just simply not enough dollars in the region to take care of the families that struggle day in and day out. Look, my organization, akin to Adrian, right? We know this space. We know it well. We've been in it for almost 40 years. We're in the process of completing the construction of 41 new homes to add to our rental portfolio, which is great.
For Beyond Housing.
For Beyond Housing, which is a great and wonderful thing. It took us several years and millions of dollars to make all that happen. And today, I'm pretty sure we got 41 calls from people needing a place to live. Right, so we're not going to simply build our way out of it. Right, we have to figure out what are other things that we can do, and the flexibility that the task force designed in this trust fund that says we want to support you if you like where you're living now, but you've hit a bump in the road. You're struggling and you want to stay there. So we don't have to build a new home for everybody who needs it. No, that's not what this is suggesting. It's again providing housing stability in a number of different ways. That will hopefully provide, again, financial stability for the family that gives them an opportunity to keep on the track that they're going, their kids in school, you and your job. So again, this idea of again, providing a home for everybody is not building a new home. It's not spending, tens of thousands of dollars on everybody. It's just sometimes folks just need a little bit of help. And we know in the region there's just not enough dollars to do that, whether it's utility assistance, rent assistance, all those things are always out. People run out and everyone's scrambling for kind of support. And again, what the task force did, and we're thrilled to have so many talented people with us, said, look, we need to be flexible in how the dollars are used, and we need to be clear we don't want to spend a bunch of money on new construction because all the money will go away quickly, and that's not the goal either. The goal is can we serve as many families as possible, stabilize their situation, allow that family to be as strong as possible.
And diversify that's pretty much what we really wanted, to be able to not put all of our eggs into one bucket, but to be able to diversify, which is what Chris was mentioning. So we're excited.
Are there similar trust funds around the country that you know about?
There's hundreds of trust funds all across the country.
Not a new idea, but
oh my God.
new for us.
New for us in the county. The city has one. Again, the St. Louis County's planning staff and Office of Community Development were wonderful folks, and they gave us just a ton of information. We would ask them for any number of things, right? So literally there are hundreds of trust funds across the country, state trust funds, regional trust funds, local trust funds. So this is not a new concept. Many others have done it. What we did here is say, what are the needs in St. Louis County based upon the data? And what do we think is the best way to respond to those needs and use the dollars that will come from the tax base in the most effective and efficient way.
Can you name a place where such a trust fund has been successful?
Off the top of my head, it's been because the trust fund concluded its work a couple months ago. Off the top of my head, I don't remember, but there was, again, all across the country, we've seen great successes. Small cities, big cities, rural areas, suburban areas, urban areas. Again, so this is not a new, untried thing. This is the state of Missouri has a trust fund that they've had for years, and they've had great success at, again, supporting folks living in affordable housing. So again, the region is aware of trust funds that are successful, and this is one for the largest. Statistical metropolitan area, right? St. Louis County, over 1 million people, and we need more resources to meet the needs.
Okay. And what's been the response? Because I know you had people who might be affected by this. What's been their response?
Well, on the positive side, we had several of agencies who very positive, because some of the agencies their clients will also benefit from this. Mm-hmm. And so it's
Yeah, and we had, I think, over 500 community residents responded and said, what do you think about this? And
that's what I mean, community residents.
Yeah.
What
yes,
did Mrs. Jones with the 5 kids think?
Yeah, look, all of them through the various agencies, whether it's the Urban League, whether it's the YWCA, whether it's Beyond Housing, a number of other partners have said, look, we struggle to meet the needs of those people that reach out to us day in and day out. There is not enough affordable housing, right? Look, in this country, we don't have a national housing policy. For the region, we don't have a regional housing policy, right? There's nothing that says that again, providing people a decent, safe place to live is important to us. And again, what we know from all of our work, and if you talk to any not-for-profit organization, if you talk to the United Way, they will tell you one of the top 1 or 2 needs of everyone who crosses their threshold is, I have a housing problem. I need a better place to live. I need to afford my place. My place is not in good condition. Right? We know that exists. We just have not found the resources to meet those wide and varied needs here in the region, and particularly in St. Louis County.
And no one in the survey said, we don't need this. I mean, we did do the survey with stakeholders, residents in North County, and it's needed.
How long did it take you all to come up with your findings?
We met for 6 months, and we met for half a day once a month, and it was a big commitment. It was a big commitment from the folks who participated, and we had folks from the banking industry, we had folks from the fair housing industry, we had, St. Louis County staff, we had folks from Washington University, we had folks from the St. Louis Equity Fund, we had folks from Gateway Housing First, which is an organization that provides services for people with disabilities. We had
we had a resident.
we had a resident there. We had somebody from the St. Louis Community Foundation. So again, we had a wide variety of folks saying, from a regional perspective, this is important. And I think the best thing about it, and I think Adrian and I talked about this, is we didn't agree on everything all the time, right? We really thrashed some things about, right? These were public meetings, but it was great attendance, and we had some contentious stuff, but we all came to it, with the best intentions about how do we create a document to give the St. Louis County government that says, here's our recommendations to meet the unmet housing needs of those in need in St.Louis County.
And when did you deliver your report, your findings?
2 weeks ago.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you gave them to Steve Stanger.
that is who convened us, and that who asked us to deliver the report back to him, and he thanked us for our work just 2 days ago. I think we all got a letter from him thanking us for our participation in the task force and creating these recommendations. And again, we're hopeful that the new county executive and his team will be willing to meet with us and support the recommendations and support the findings, and hopefully support us in our effort to generate the revenue.
Have you also given your report to council members?
The county executive has already done that. So
Okay.
We know clearly. We know that a number of them who we've already talked to are in support of it, and hopefully we can get the full council to embrace it.
And actually last week, County Councilwoman Lisa Clancy introduced a bill that would enact some income protection for people who are using some type of subsidy or assistance to pay their rent, which was part of our finding as well. People who are receiving vouchers, housing vouchers, sometimes are not accepted into a housing unit because of the voucher. So we don't know how far the bill will go, but at least we can see some movement already.
That was Adrian Bracy, CEO of the YWCA of Metro St. Louis, and Chris Krehmeyer, CEO of Beyond Housing, co-chairs of St. Louis County's Affordable Housing Trust Fund Task Force. This is St. Louis on the Air on St. Louis Public Radio, 90.7 KWMU.
Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, saluting Earth Day on April 22nd with an ongoing commitment to help offset carbon emissions with sustainable harvesting of Missouri forests. Details at choosewood.com. The Gateway brings you the day's news from the St. Louis region and across Missouri. It also includes stories from the Illinois side of the river and our Metro East reporter, Will Bauer.
In Alton, in Belleville, in East St. Louis, in Edwardsville, in Cahokia Heights, at Scott Air Force Base, I'm Will Bauer, St. Louis Public Radio.
Listen to reports from Will and all of our journalists weekdays on the Gateway, on the STLPR app, and wherever you get podcasts.